Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast, a show to share stories, insights, and experiences from some of the greatest coaches in the world. I'm Michael Kurkowski, so grateful for you joining me today. And if you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to support the show. All right, let's dive in. Here we go.
All right, we're up and live. Thanks everyone for joining us. Welcome to the Strength Connection. Aram, nice to meet you, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be able to share this with different audiences and see what shakes out from these conversations.
No doubt. Well, I'm super grateful for you taking time here. Got a chance to follow the work that you've put out on social media and the work you've done, with 4 Weeks to the Beach. And I always love when people have such a clear message about, fitness and nutrition. And you and Andrew Coates, I see, are very similar in that, put out very just simple messages for people. And I think there's often this thing with coaches that we want to put out like the niche things and like our own spin on things and stuff. And you do a really job of just clearing out all the bullshit from stuff and just keeping it very simple for people. So as a consumer of your work, very grateful for you. And I'm excited to hear more about your journey.
Thanks, man. I think a lot of coaches are overcomplicating it. And I think it's probably to placate to other coaches. But that's not who I'm selling my services to, and that's not who I'm trying to help. Like, I don't need to help the 23-year-old who's already invested in this stuff. I don't need to help the 30-year-old coach I don't need to justify myself to the 30 or 40-year-old coach. Like, I don't give a shit if Lane Norton agrees with me or not.
Right.
He's not even a fucking coach anymore. So you can do all the stitch videos you want and bring other people down. I'm just going to keep putting out practical information.
Yeah. That is really interesting, right? It's so easy to think like you want to put stuff out and have other coaches, other colleagues give you the validation of what you're doing, when it's like, are you trying to work with people that you're working with?
Yeah.
Probably the message is going to be a little bit different there.
I just don't care. I used to care. I used to care about finding a credible voice and being an authority figure in my space. But I've earned that right over the course of the 15 years I've been doing it. So I don't really need to justify it.
Yeah.
And again, the reality is I'm not a B2B coach. I'm not selling coaching to coaches. I'm selling solutions to lay people problems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even selling anything really. I'm just giving out solutions constantly. And what people end up paying me for is nuanced expertise and accountability. Because most people know what they should be doing.
Yeah.
If you're on Instagram following fitness accounts, you're not fucking stupid. You know that you should be eating protein and training with weights and sleeping and drinking water and taking steps. That stuff is not foreign to anybody at this point. Problem is why aren't you making it stick? And if you had some financial skin in the game, maybe that keeps you accountable. If you had a clearer vision, maybe that keeps you accountable. If you had better nuanced education surrounding nutrition and training, maybe that keeps you accountable. But it's, I don't think I've quite figured out the formula yet.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's different. You'll sign somebody up and they'll be rock stars within 3 weeks of starting, and they continue to be for the rest of their time with you. And then you have people that start up and you've given them all the resources they could ever need, and they still can't put it together because unfortunately, this is not a priority for a lot of people. And the impact of not doing it is not that severe, or at least it's not immediately severe.
Mm.
Right? If you don't eat well, or if you don't train, nothing really goes to shit all that fast.
Yeah.
It's not maybe slowly your health is degrading, maybe slowly your mental health is degrading, but it's not severe. I wish it was almost if you ate like shit for a day, you would immediately gain 30 pounds.
Right.
I kind of wish that if you let's say you just decided I'm going to spend the weekend eating like an asshole, then on Monday morning you wake up and you're 30 pounds heavier. I bet people wouldn't do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's so much gold that you just put in there and all that information. My girlfriend always has the line. She's like, I wish there was a pill that could just give somebody for one day what they would feel like if they actually got the fitness and the feelings that they wanted to, just to get a little bit of a taste of it. And I was like, I think people would still go back to it. It's you can't earn it over one day. You can get a piece of it and you can feel joy from it, but this is such a, the priority aspect of it, as you said, everybody's such an individual. It's an individual course that you have going on, and the formula is ever evolving, and it's going to change from one person to the next on there. I used to say this thing too. I used to manage a gym, and we had 12 trainers. We had a, big 15,000 square foot gym, and we had, 1,500 members or so. And I used to train the front desk staff all the time. And I would give them all these stats. Look, we got 12 trainers that make their full-time living here doing very well. We have 500 people that are invested in individual coaching. We got another 1,000 that come here as their fitness routine. So we do a lot of really good stuff. But the next person that comes in here that's never heard about any of that, they don't know anything. So you're the person at the front desk. You need to smile. You need to give them the best first impression. Otherwise, they'll never know any of that other stuff in there. So you got to treat every new person coming in as a brand new project, a brand new puzzle to put in. The first thing you do is just, put on a smile, because all the stuff that you've done with other people really doesn't mean anything to the next person that you're working with.
No, and I couldn't agree with that sentiment more, because I think and maybe this happened during COVID, and maybe this has just been kind of the trend over the last 15 years or so, but I've just watched enthusiasm and customer service get thrown out the window so often. Like, even just like typical service places where whether it's buying a product or a service, there's just no level of care anymore. It's just that there's no personal responsibility. There's no pride and ownership anymore. It's like you walk into a coffee shop and they're just fucking miserable that they're serving you coffee. If you walk in to get your oil changed, they're miserable that they're changing your oil. Like, there's just no, like, if that's your job, if that's what you're hired to do and you're being paid for it, like, you're not doing charity work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stay the fuck home if you don't like it, or go get another job. Like, I just can't stand. And I get it. Like, with coaching, you can definitely build up a resentment towards clientele because of their non-compliance. But then you also have to understand, are you fostering an environment of non-compliance, or is you as a coach holding people to a lower, shittier standard?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just not challenging them. Like, and I've noticed for myself, if I start to slip up with my own behavior and I start to give myself more grace, my clients follow suit very quickly, because they want that permission to just be able to be more relaxed. Yeah. Whereas I'm like, where has that led you? Where's that led me? And then that's a gut check time. Like, let's get the fuck out of our own way. We don't need to be eating after dinner. We don't need to be mindlessly snacking in front of the TV. We don't need to be coping with our stress with alcohol. We don't need to be sitting on our ass all weekend when we've sat on our ass all week. Like, we have to raise ourselves to a higher standard. It doesn't mean 100% compliance, 100% go all the time, but like, do a little bit better than the fucking past. At some point, you have to realize that, like, there's nobody responsible for your situation aside from you.
Yeah. I wonder too, with the customer service act, but that's really interesting, because I think, COVID broke a lot of people's spirit in that aspect of just even a short time of everybody being so locked in solitude for a while. It's almost like there was this lost art of just communication and energy share between people. And I think specifically in the coaching world for fitness and nutrition, so many people went to the online aspect afterwards. And I even was, I was a victim of this as well myself, because I thought that, online, like, you don't need that personal touch as much from it. It's like, like, I'm going to have all these people and I have all my time free now. Like, I just need to do a once a week check-in with people. And then you realize, yeah, you're not talking to them throughout the time and they've messed up. You haven't give communication standards for people of working with. So I think a lot of people, and as I say, a lot of people, like myself included, is you thought that it's going to be this easier, like, aspect of coaching, where I found it's way more challenging to do it online, because you need to be that much more in tune, because somebody's not right in front of you.
You have more touch points with people online. Like, I was an in-person trainer for about 10 years before I started online. And I think that the results that I get with my clientele base online is definitely better, because I just have more access to them and I'm in their ear more often. And again, it just goes back to that principle of people know what they should be doing.
Yeah.
The X's and O's don't start getting applied until there's a firm foundation. I don't give a fuck about macros and calories and reps and sets and time under tension and progressive overload. If you don't have an eating strategy, if you don't have a consistency or frequency of gym attendance, the fuck does that stuff ever matter for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not, like, I had a buddy of mine from high school texting me the other day. He's like, my back hurts. What should I do? I'm like, dude, do you understand the amount of questions I'm about to ask you? Like, don't just ask me for solutions to your problems unless you're truly asking for help and change. And you're willing to then be a participant of that change. Because I'm going to need to know a hell of a lot of information before I give you any tangible advice that you can go and use.
Right. Or I'll just say, put ice on it. And then.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is like, you're asking me for something that's such a nuanced thing. Like, okay, is it because you sit all day? Is it because because your glutes are tight or your hamstrings are tight? Is it because you have stress? Or is it because you have poor upper body flexibility and your thoracic is locked up? Like, it's not just a one size fits all. And I think everybody's looking for this, like, one magic bullet solution to all their problems. when in reality, the body is a system of different, or it's an interplay of all these different systems.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, stack psychology on top of it.
Mhm.
And that's the bitch of it all. Like, I don't give a fuck about the human body is not that complicated. It's actually relatively easy to explain to people. But explain the shit that's happening between people's ears to them, and then watch them start to really retreat and not understand how to fix anything, because they are the root cause and the solution to all their problems.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that's going on there. Yeah, I want to dive more into the strategies that you work with your business stuff. I want to take it back a little bit more and know a little bit more about you. Like, been doing this for 15 years. You've made some transitions in the work that you do over that time. How did this all get start for you? Like, what made you want to get into the coaching world, kind of get into the fitness and the nutrition world?
I'm always kind of an enthusiast of it myself. Even when I was in finance in Connecticut for a while out of college, and I was just like that person that people ask, like, "What are you eating for lunch today? What are you doing for your training tonight?" And I was always the person whose brain was getting picked about that stuff. And then my company went through a bunch of transitions. We were getting bought out by different people, so um, I got laid off in 2012. Prior to that, I was already kind of starting to train people on the side. And when I got laid off, I didn't want to go back into finance. I didn't want to work behind a desk anymore. So I went
Mhm.
and got certified for NASM. I got my first gym job at Equinox in New York, or in Connecticut rather, but like right in New York Metro in Greenwich, Connecticut there. And it was the flagship location of theirs. And I just started working with people, and I realized like it was just about personal connection and personal attention. Like, the trainers I think that were doing really well were the ones who had the best rapport with their clients, and that's who I learned from.
Mhm.
And I realized it had nothing to do with training. It had nothing to do with these people actually getting results. They just basically hired you if they liked you and not. That's what coaching is. Like,
Mhm.
and that's the thing I always want coaches to, like, if coaches are listening to this podcast, like 2 out of 10 of your clients are going to get results, realistically, on average. The rest of them won't. Or if they do, they're going to unravel at some point when they leave you. And that's just the unfortunate truth. Like, I always tell people that, and I tell my clients that. I'm like, I'm only as good to you as you allow me to be.
Mhm.
So if you aren't willing to change from the inside out, like, I can give you the best workouts, I can put you on a fucking diet, you can lose weight, you can gain muscle, but if you don't build this into your life, and if this doesn't become important to you as your kids are, as your job is, then we haven't really done much for you. Like, that's not
Mhm.
the kind of, like, I'm not a fat loss coach. I don't give a shit if you lose weight or not. I really
Right.
don't. What I care about is, have you learned anything to make yourself autonomous? And when I was coming up through the ranks, I realized very quickly that, like, there was a difference between the good, the better, and the best. And the best were the ones that were retaining their clients, and the ones that retained their clients did so purely through rapport and purely through enthusiasm. They didn't do it through anything other than that. Like, again, it's not hard to get somebody to lose fat. It's not hard to get somebody to build muscle or gain strength.
Mhm.
What's hard is how do you manage them through the different seasons of their life? What happens when their husband gets laid off from work and now all that money that they were paying for you to go to the gym is gone? What
Mhm.
happens when their kid gets diagnosed with leukemia? What happens when their other child is suicidal? What happens when their other child has an eating disorder? What happens when they get laid off from work? What happens when their body image finally starts to come back down? What happens when their relationship with food starts to impact their decision making? That to me is so much more crucial in understanding the relationship that a client and a coach have with one another,
Mhm.
as opposed to just being results driven. Because I think, yes, like, it's a very sexy concept of like, well, your clients are not getting results because you suck as a coach. No, no, I'll take all the blame in the world if I want, and I have for years. I used to go to bed with my people's problems, but I very quickly realized,
Mhm.
like, they just don't give a fuck. Like,
Mhm.
most people say they want something, but they don't live in accordance with what they say.
Right.
So I had to learn that the hard way, because I was very wet behind the ears when I started. I had this very romantic vision of helping people, like, "Yeah, I'm going to help everybody." Some people aren't going to be helped. And, the way that I evolved was realizing that you have to deal with each individual and dig deep into their psychology and into the
Mhm.
reason why they make the decisions they make. And unless you can tap into that, you are going to fucking be miserable as a coach, and you're going to hate every single client you have.
Yeah. I think it is like there's the old cliche, term of control what you can control, right? And I think coaches, we're so adamant of thinking that we can control the destiny of everybody we work with because we're so knowledgeable and we're so caring and we want everybody to do the best and we have the best strategies in here. And then when they don't do well, you take it on yourself. Like I love what you said, like you go to bed with your client's problems. Like done that a million times, before and realize the more you realize that you can only do so much. This is a partnership that we're working with. It's not a dictator and a slave that's working on here. This needs to be, connected together. And the earlier on you say that in the process, the more chance you have of making that maybe 2 out of 10, maybe getting up to 3 out of 10 or a little bit more going on from there. But it's interesting that you found that so early on of recognizing that, of how powerful communication and really like the psychological side of it was the beginning. Because I know a lot of trainers, they focus so much on tactics and strategies and finding the best certifications and ways to, you know, input all these programs and stuff like that. But you saw a different side of it pretty early on there. Was that by your own accord of just observing, or was that something in the system and the Equinox that you had that they really preached right away?
No, Equinox is very good at X's and O's. EFTI, which was their further continuing education program in-house, was fantastic. It was 150 hours. It was mandatory, and it was leaps and bounds way better than NASM. So it wasn't that they taught the psychological piece. It's just I've always been a little bit more introspective than most people. Like I tend to just be a deeper thinker. I tend to have more relevant, deeper conversations with people. Like I'm not a very surface level guy. No, don't get me wrong. You pump 3 or 4 vodka sodas into me and you give me a bump of blow, and all of a sudden I'll be your best acquaintance in the world, and I'll party with you until 5 in the morning, and we'll talk about nothing but bullshit. But if you present with a problem, I'm just naturally going to try to dig deep to understand what that solution to that problem is going to be. And that just comes from a general curiosity of the human condition. Like I just find people to be very fascinating, because I think people are full of shit. And I know that because I'm full of shit half the time. And it's very easy to lie to yourself and give yourself all these really beautiful stories about how you can't do things and how you don't have enough time or money's tight. Like I'll give you a perfect example. Client of mine left citing finances as the main contributor to her decision. Fast forward, I kept her in my Facebook group. I always do that. Like if you leave, you could just stay in my Facebook group forever. I don't care. And we were following each other on Facebook, and I see that they had just bought a brand new truck, like a fucking GMC 3500 for probably, I don't know, 80, 100 grand, whatever the fucking thing is. And she's complaining about washing this new truck. And I shoot her a text message. I said, listen, it's none of my business how you spend your money, but let me offer you a little bit of food for thought. If I ever complained about money and in the same breath also complained about how much I don't feel good, I would make sure that I would move heaven and earth to figure out my mental and physical health before I spent money on a truck. And then all of a sudden, just like bubble after bubble after bubble after bubble. And just, we started a conversation because I want to truly provoke thought. Like I want people to start to realize that, like, you could say whatever it is that you want to say, but you have to live that way. There has to be an action placed behind what you say. Otherwise it's meaningless utterly. And I just want to challenge people. Like I was challenged my whole fucking life. Every boss I had challenged me. Every friend I had that was a good friend challenged me. My father and I had a really tumultuous relationship. He challenged me, and everybody in my life pushed me further ahead, and they did something to spark that change. But if I don't challenge people, what good am I as a coach?
Yeah, that's interesting. The confrontation. So many people were conflict averse on that, and then go whole lives without getting challenged because you're meeting a bunch of other people who are conflict averse, and you keep everything just under level. And I can just say finances because that's an easy out. From there, it's hard for many people to argue with that and stuff. But then also all of a sudden, a little confrontation comes up, and like actually it's a not even provoking thought, it's an interrupt of thought. Because 90% of our thoughts are the same patterns that over and over again. Now all of a sudden someone changes the pattern, makes you a little uncomfortable there. But if you actually go through that, I think there's such respect on the other side from that, from the person that did that, especially when you're doing it out of compassion and out of love and like out of like a genuine caring, and somebody can understand that there. Sometimes that's just the one thing that can just change somebody's course on that. And all of a sudden, because you said when we're full of shit, I 100% agree. I think mostly though we're full of shit to ourselves.
That's what it is. Yeah, I don't think we're overtly walking around being pathological liars. I think we pathologically lie to ourselves. I think I'm too tired. I'm too busy. I need, you know what I mean? Like, I think we make these absolutist statements in our own head, and we wire that hardwired into our personality and into our identity because we say it so often.
Yeah.
And it's something as simple as like, when I'm done with my day and I eat my dinner, I know that if I smoke pot, as soon as I finish my dinner or before I even start, I'm going to have the munchies.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that if I have shit in my house and I have the munchies, then I'm going to end up overeating on my calories.
Yep.
So I have to come up with a strategy to not keep falling back into that pattern. So what's an easy strategy in that sense, right? I can just not smoke pot
Mm-hmm.
until right before bedtime, which
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm really using it for anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can have an edible, which is not going to get me munchy, or I can keep myself busier at the end of my night where I'm not just plastered into my couch and I can be more productive, which will thwart me from making shittier decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken one problem and constructed multiple solutions for it
Mm-hmm.
because other people will take that same problem and just continually convince themselves that there's a problem versus trying to find solutions for that problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a lot of people just tend to be stuck in their own way because they have this narrative so strongly foundationally built up in their mind that they're just unwilling to see outside of that very, very thin line that they're looking through of what all these possibilities out here are. Like I had a client today that was talking to me about her alcohol consumption. And I'm like, I just don't understand how you think you're going to be able to drink 16 drinks in the course of 2 weeks and still be able to feel good. Like I got fucking hammered on Friday night and I had to push myself throughout Saturday and Sunday to be productive at all.
Yeah.
And you're waking up like this 5-6 days a week or over the 5-6 days over the course of 2 weeks, and you're a mother and you're employed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how the fuck do you function and why do you continually shoot yourself in the foot? Like, do you actually enjoy drinking? And she's like, no. I said, do you not think that there are better ways to deal with your stress? She said, absolutely there are. I said, what solutions have you come up with? She said, nothing that is stuck. I said, what have you tried? She said, well, I've tried going to counseling. I've tried talking to people. I'm like, no, no, what have you actually done? What
Right.
have you actually changed in your life to do that? Not what extrinsic motivation have you tried to find? What internal drive have you changed in your own life? I'm like, have you considered taking your family out for a walk after dinner? Have you considered journaling as soon as you start to feel
Mm-hmm.
that those thoughts come up? Have you considered, cleaning your kitchen or prepping your food for the next day or doing something around the house to keep yourself busy or removing yourself from the situation, sitting in a room for 5 minutes and just staring at a wall and deep breathing and thinking about what's going on in your head? No, 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 no. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you haven't actually done anything
Mm-hmm.
to remedy your problem. You just keep complaining that there's a problem. You keep feeding into that problem. And that's where most people's problems are, is they have this problem and then there's never any chance at a solution because the solution after one or two attempts at trying it and realizing it doesn't work, they've just never given it enough time to formulate or take shape.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
this always this need for instant gratification. Like if I have a problem, the solution needs to fix this problem immediately or else it doesn't work. As
Yeah.
opposed to I have this problem that I've had for 15 fucking years, and then I can't expect the implementation of a solution to take shape in 3 sessions or 3 attempts. It might take me a third of that time, right? If I had a
Mm-hmm.
problem for 15 years, maybe it takes me 5 years to fix it. Maybe it takes me 3 years to fix it. But if at the end of that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you know that there's going to be a solution to that problem, I think it's worth pursuing.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. It's this distinction between being happy and being joyful that I've used before, where like the things that are really deep, like deep relationships, health and fitness, even career development and stuff, those things that are very deep, they take a lot of time. It's not an instant gratification thing. But if you go into something like alcohol or food or weed and stuff, which gives you that instant gratification, the changeover that you're doing of applying something different, it's a different approach. It's not going to have the same first initial effect as smoking a bowl and hanging out and watching comedy shows and eating cookies, which is really fun to do.
It's awesome.
Like I get it. Like
It's
I had
awesome.
that personally myself about a year and a half ago where I realized I'm like, yeah, like it's fun to get a little high and then just like veg out after night because it's been a busy day and it's stuff like that. I realized like I don't respond well with this. I have some friends that do very well. They do creative stuff. They want to go have energy and go do stuff. That's not me. And I
Yeah.
had to look at it, be like, this just does not fit me. Like I have to do something different if I want to get to the goals that I want to get to. And I think it's big thing around is like, I think it's so many things. It's taking something from reactive to proactive to just be
Yep.
so powerful, where it's like so many things that we do like that. It's like you're just reacting to the situation throughout the day versus if you can just take one thing and just make it a little bit more proactive and see the blitz ahead of time, just 1 extra second, then you have a better chance of getting the ball out of your hands. And then maybe you're not scoring a touchdown on that play, but you're not going to take a sack and you can keep moving forward.
Yeah, that proactivity is something that I'm constantly trying to beat into my clients' heads because everybody is so reactive, especially now. I think we live in a world that is, again, it's there's no such thing as delayed gratification. There's no such thing as personal responsibility. We have this narrative of complacency and it's okay to be okay. And anybody that works or, like people that are fit are outliers.
Mm.
And I don't think you have to look fit to be a fit person. Like as long as you're living in accordance with fitness, meaning are you paying attention to your sleep routine and your night and your bed and your wake up routine? Are you eating mostly whole foods? Are you minimizing booze and meals out? Are you taking a lot of steps and having movement outside of the gym? Are you somebody who goes to the gym with some intention? Like if you're doing those things and you haven't quite gotten to the physique that you desired, it doesn't disqualify you from being a fit person. Like you're still living in accordance with fitness. I just think that people have this really sad narrative of like, well, if I don't have the body to match the actions, then I don't get to call myself that or I don't belong to that club. Whereas for me, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like I know plenty of people who look fit who actually poison themselves on a weekend to weekend basis.
Mhm.
I know plenty of people who are, underweight and they talk about organic this or organic that when every weekend they're drinking fucking wine and doing blow.
Mhm.
So like, don't tell me about organic fruits and vegetables and how like nitrates are bad for you, but then every weekend you're putting a fucking bottle and a half of wine down your throat.
Yeah.
So like that to me isn't fitness. Fitness encompasses so many different things in your life from a characteristic standpoint. And I think integrity and personal responsibility are the two things that I really want to extract out of people.
Mhm.
Because I want them to know that you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. If you want to eat like shit all weekend long, great. Just don't wake up on Monday morning surprised about how you feel.
Mhm.
If the scale is fluctuating and you're a woman, expect that to be the case. If you're in midlife because most of my clients are women over 40,
Mhm.
and that's a very tough demographic because a lot of it is tied into psychology, a lot of it is tied into relationship with food and body image and body dysmorphia and orthorexia and this idea of like they're valuing themselves only based off their appearance or their weight. And these are sensitive subjects to talk about. And as a 40-year-old like man who looks the way that I do, sometimes it's hard to be able to find common ground. You're like, well, what the fuck do you know? And I'm like, I know a lot because I knew that when I was 31 years old and I got diagnosed with low testosterone and I couldn't get an erection for a year and a half, I wanted to put a gun in my fucking head and pull the
Mhm.
trigger because I lost my value as a man, just the
Yeah.
same way that you feel that you've lost your value as a woman because you're not the right weight or the right size or society keeps telling you to be a different person. So I absolutely resonate and I get it. And I know that every time that just because you ate well or worked out that week, you could still look in the mirror and not like what you see.
Mhm.
And I understand all those things. And that's why I'm so easy to resonate with because I deal with all the same problems. I've just had 25 years of practice not making them problems.
Right. Has the approach, it's interesting because I work with a similar demographic, and I think a lot of people do, especially women, women, especially going into that age of 35, 40 and over. There's a lot of psychological aspect. There's a lot on men as well. I mean, this is a human problem that we're working with right there. But as you talked about, the psychological side is so powerful. Has your approach of speaking with people new who are maybe interested in talking with you about getting help, has your approach changed in how you connect with people, maybe like the questions that you asked over time from maybe what you did before to now evolving your process of how you do things now?
So interestingly enough, when I first started nutrition coaching, I used to the reverse dieting narrative was really, really strong.
Mhm.
And it was this idea that like you're not losing weight because you're not eating enough. And here I am looking at the, pictures of women who are 35% plus body fat, very low muscle mass, sedentary, don't drink water, don't eat whole foods, don't prioritize protein. And I'm increasing their calories to these astronomical heights, being like, well, if I keep pushing higher, you're going to keep losing weight. Meanwhile, they're just ballooning up to like 200 pounds. So I just realized that the textbook's not right. And I realized that the narratives aren't right. And the law of thermodynamics can't be beat. Like it's a law. It's a law for a reason and it works. And we just have to be able to understand how to manipulate it with each individual. So at some point, it's really going to be a game of limbo of how low can you go calorie wise.
Mhm.
Should you live in that state chronically? No. But the thing that I've really changed my opinion on is you can't tell me that you're eating well if the result isn't overtly there. Like I make all my clients track their food, and some of them are hesitant to do it, and some of them don't want to. And I just had this issue with a client of mine that signed up recently. His number is very rare case of a man signing up with me, but I do have a few guys that I work with. But the first thing he said in his intake form was, your responsibility is going to be to call me out on my shit. So we're like 3 months into it. and every month it's some piece of accountability that he doesn't want to engage in. It's either not filling out his daily update document, not submitting videos of his workouts. Now he doesn't want to track food. I'm like, okay. So now we've been at this for 3 months. You've lost an initial 2 pounds and you've kept that 2 pounds off, but you haven't lost any more weight. And at 250 pounds, you have plenty of weight to lose. And I've seen you in person because I train you in person. And you're telling me that you're eating well. What does that mean? We don't have any quantification of what well means because we're on different pages. Because if I was eating well, I'd start to see noticeable changes in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing any changes occur with you. I don't see your mobility getting better. I don't see your energy getting better. I don't see your cardiovascular health getting any better. What's changing? What are you doing that's really that good? And again, challenging somebody to think differently. So what happened there was instead of taking personal responsibility, he ended up downgrading to a package that required him to not check in with me at all. Which, whatever. Like, I don't, again, at this point in my career, I'm not here to fight with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to do what's being asked of you, but you still also expect results, then we're on a completely different playing field. You're out in la la land thinking that things are going to change if you don't want to actually change anything. So if you don't want to give me the information that I need to help you, then aside from just like cheering you on and telling you you're doing a good job, what the fuck purpose do I serve? And if you want to continue paying my bills, great. I mean, I live in California. My rent's $3,400 a month. I'll take the money.
Right.
But I think we have this very fundamental disconnect between action and expectations. I think that people have been fed bullshit for so long about the quick fix messaging that's out there, do this diet or do that diet, and this is going to change quickly. Or they're looking at comparison game pictures of people who are nowhere near the qualifications that they are. Like, a 48-year-old woman doesn't need to be looking at 22-year-old fitness influencer accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And a 48-year-old man doesn't need to be like remembering or thinking about what happened in high school because he's 25 years removed from that. And the glory days are over, pal. Like, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You've been sitting on your ass for 20 years and you've put on 65 pounds. You are not the football player you once were. So you can't do that shit anymore.
Yeah.
You have to start from scratch. And I just think that nobody talks to people like that. Everybody paints and sugarcoats this bullshit where I'm like, guys, get fucking real at some point. Like, you didn't get fat by accident. It's like, this happens with women in midlife constantly. It's like, well, I just woke up one day and I got fat. I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. Somewhere along the line, you stop paying attention to a few of those variables. And that's okay. I'm not chastising you for it, but I just want you to like look in the mirror a little bit. Stop blaming your problems on all these other, it's my hormones, it's my age, it's my gut health, it's my food quality. Nick, no, you just fucking ate too much and moved too little.
Yeah.
That's all that happened. That it's just net over time. That's what occurred because you keep comparing yourself to the 22-year-old version of yourself when you had no children, no stress, no debt, no responsibility. And every single time you went out, you took 25,000 steps because even though you were drinking, you were still walking around.
Right.
Now it's like you do the same amount of drinking, but you take 25,000 steps less a day.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't built an ounce of muscle in 25 years of doing yoga and Pilates.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought that was exercise, and it wasn't because your body had adapted to it. And it was great for stretching and it was great for mobility, but it did dick for you for muscle building. And now the organ of longevity and the organ that can shuttle calories to a certain place is not present anymore. So when you start to like illuminate these things to people, they start having these aha moments if they're accepting of it, or they still lean into that rebellious, like, no, I know what I'm doing and I just have to keep doing. Okay, fine. I don't have the bandwidth to fight about it anymore.
Yeah. It's interesting with the example of the guy there that you said, like, I want you to call me out on my stuff, but then as soon as you actually do, then it's like this revolting back. It's fascinating. I mean, people are fascinating in itself right there. And it's like, I think you want to be honest, but then it still comes back to, it sounds like they're like, he wants somebody else to be honest with him, but still not be honest with himself.
Yeah. I mean, I went about it in the most diplomatic, empathetic way possible. And I sent him like a text message basically saying, hey man, here's the state of the union. I'm coming from a place of empathy and respect. And I just think that sometimes people know that there's going to have to be a heightened level of effort on their part, and they're just unwilling to do that. And that's really just what it comes down to. Like, if I tell, I'm working with a company called TRM for business coaching right now. And I have, my goal with them is to try to increase my monthly revenue to a certain amount. I can't keep telling them I want to make more money if I don't do the things that they tell me to do. right? Like if they said, hey, like implement this step and this process and put this into place in your coaching practice and do this, this, and this. And if I don't do those things or give those things a chance to materialize, I don't get to complain that their system isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take ownership and say, I haven't done these parts, or I've done some of them, but not all of them. So if I haven't done all of them, I don't get to expect 100% of the result that you promised me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing with our coaching practices. If you don't do the bare minimum of what we ask you to do, then you have to lower the bar for your expectations. That's just how it works. And assembly is going to be required at some point. Like, you have to do something different. If what you've done in the past has led you to where you are today, how could you possibly in any type of right rational mind assume that if you continue down that same trajectory that something's going to just magically change? It won't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the body only responds to stress. That's how it happens. You stress it out, it adapts. You stress it out, it adapts. It's understanding how to dose that stress properly to evoke the best possible response and not enough breakdown. That's really what it comes down to. It's stress mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding how to appropriately and strategically apply stressors in different parts of your life to challenge you and then grow. That's how muscle grows. That's how fat is lost. That's how new skills are built. Everything is uncomfortable when you first start because you're a novice to it or because you don't have enough practice with it. And then over time, you become more familiar and more comfortable with it. And then as you adapt to it, you need to then heighten that effort or heighten that intensity to be able to evoke a better, greater response. That's just how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where do you think that just comes from the most with people who kind of just hold back and they don't do the things that they want? Do you think it comes from a pride and an ego type thing of like not wanting to be humble and actually like take advice from somebody else? Or is it more of like a fear-based thing of like people are just naturally like we're afraid of change and change is uncomfortable and spend a lot of time not like being comfortable a while, so uncomfortable is so out of the norm, for them? Do you think it's more kind of like one thing versus the other, if you could break it down?
I think people convince themselves that they're really, really stress resilient because they have proof of concept in other places of their life.
Hmm.
Like, they think that just because they get the shit beat out of them by their boss, that they're able to handle stress. Whereas, like, when their kids yell at each other or their dog shits on the carpet, they freak out. So, like, if you're stress resilient, that doesn't mean that you're only stress resilient in one part of your life. It means that you're globally stress resilient.
Mhm.
That's somebody who has poise. That's somebody who has grace. Like, if you stress that person out in any situation, provoking them in any way, they just don't react to it. So just because you're okay handling and taking shit from your boss, but then you freak out because you and your husband got into a conversation, or because your kids ended up breaking something in the bathroom and then you had to yell at them for 3 hours and now you're overwhelmed and now you're stress eating. Well, then you're not good at managing stress. You're only good at managing work stress. You're not good at managing life stress. So I think, again, we convince ourselves that we're really good at these things. Like, for this individual that ended up downgrading from coaching to just like a DIY, he's a very high achieving person in his life. Like, he's somebody who works in the medical field. He's very successful, which probably to him is proof of concept. Like, yeah, I'm tough. I can do this shit. When in reality, like, yeah, in that thing that you had 25 years of practice on, you're very good, but everywhere else you're not.
Right.
So why, like, you even said to yourself, like, I can do it in all these other places, but I can't do it here. It's because these other places are more important for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you just haven't placed enough importance into this pursuit yet. And you're not integrating it into your life. And that's the problem. Like, to me, like, I'm a health coach. Like, I don't have kids. I don't want fucking children. I don't give a shit about societal norms. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. Like, I've curated a life that I want to live. And I know that my responsibilities allow me to live the lifestyle that I want to live, to take care of my mental and physical health. But if I had children, it's hard because I don't even know like how much when my life would change. Like, I know that every day I wake up, I have to feed two of my dogs and both of my dogs eat raw.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm cooking their breakfast, I'm making my own breakfast. So, like, I've learned how to manage that time in the morning. So if you have children and if you have 3 or 4 of these things and you got to go to work also, and then you got to get them ready for school and you're waking up right before they wake up, do you think that's the best plan of attack? And do you think that that's how you're going to solve your overwhelm and your anxiety problems? Or should you wake up an hour and a half earlier and have this golden hour for yourself to where you can get all your shit done and get their stuff prepared? And now you're not rushing around and feeling like an asshole. So now you can get your throughout your whole day with more calm in your life. So I just think that again, it just comes back to that. What is the narrative that's spinning in your head all day long
Mhm.
that's making you act on it? Because my narrative is very realistic. Like if I don't live in accordance to my values, I don't expect a result.
Mhm.
And I expect complacency or a downgrade. Like that's just
Right.
how it works. If I start to put one foot in front of the other and I start to formulate better habits, I expect not things to not immediately change. I expect myself to feel better immediately psychologically and mentally because like I'm proud of myself for doing what I said I was going to do. But I don't expect there to be a physical change immediately because I know it takes time for the body to adapt. But I think some people are like, well, I ate salad and I fucking worked out this week and nothing has changed. I said, well, that's bullshit. Did you actually feel better? Did your quality of life during those few days improve? Did you have more energy? Were you more enthusiastic? Was your mood better? Did you have less digestive issues? Were you more vivacious throughout the day?
Mhm.
If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then yes, something has worked.
Right.
And you shouldn't just do it for aesthetic purposes. Like at some point, aesthetics are not going to fucking matter.
Mhm.
When you're 75 years old and you can barely get off the toilet, do you think it matters what your body fat percentage is or where your abs are? Like nobody gives a shit. When people are crafting your eulogy, they're not remembering what you weighed when you were 37 years old. They worry about the impact you had on their lives and were you actually a person that people wanted to be around. So like these people just have it all fucked up, man. Like I think people are just susceptible to messaging on social media. They're comparing themselves to a version of themselves that doesn't exist anymore. And there's a disconnect between expectations and reality.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple words there that you hit on that I thought are so powerful. One is that you use expectations a lot. And one of the things that has helped me a lot recently, and I've talked about, is the difference between setting standards and setting expectations. But the one thing you mentioned there that I thought is so powerful is that point about stress in your life and in different areas. One of the phrases that's so common that I can't stand is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's like, it's this narrative of, well, yeah, if you can handle stress in this area, then you can take that energy and use that as a launching pad that you can go into this area. It's like, no, like you're probably, if you're in a high corporate, job and you're really driven to do that, yeah, it's a different energy that you have. Yeah, there's certain qualities that maybe you can kind of very loosely bring over to something else. But if you're talking about something that you're very new at and you don't know, and you're taking that same energy and probably ego a bit that you're doing in the thing that you're really successful at into something else, it's going to be completely different right there. So I think as coaches, I think, it's good advice is just to always, as we kind of talked about at the beginning, is treating every person so individualized into where they are in their specific journey that they're trying to get to. Not just, oh, they're a high performing person in their job, so they're really driven and stuff like that. They might not be driven at all in their in their health and fitness, and they might actually be a real pain in the ass, for you because they're used to being the boss so much, and now the tables have turned a lot going on from there. So yeah, treating each person very individualized and going in there, I think is such a powerful message.
Yeah. And just continue asking questions. Just ask all the questions in the world and sit back and listen.
Mhm.
It's like, it's like the same shit that cops do with criminals.
Yeah.
You put a dude into a room and you start grilling him, at some point he's gonna fess up.
Yeah.
He's gonna turn himself in. You let people talk for long enough and the bullshit gets revealed very quickly.
Yeah.
And that's just what I do. Like I just kind of throw a question out there, I softball it to them and I sit back and I listen. And then I throw
Mhm.
them another one. I listen to what they said. I formulate another question, then I softball that to them, and I sit back and listen. And it's just continue. It's essentially cognitive behavioral talk therapy. That's
Yeah.
just kind of like I think we have another narrative in our business that I think is really fucked up. Like, well, you're not a therapist. You don't be out of your scope of practice. I'm like asking questions and trying to get people to level themselves up is not crossing any boundaries. I'm not prescribing anything. I'm not
Mhm.
telling them to go take their medicine or do this or do that. Like I'm just giving them food for thought. And if you're not doing that as a coach, what purpose are you serving? It's not hard to teach somebody macronutrients and training. Like anybody can get that certification in a weekend.
Yeah.
But why are these people like these people know this stuff? Again, like if you've been following my content for
Mhm.
over 6 months, you know everything there is to know about food quality and macro counting and training. Like there's not much you don't know.
Mhm.
If you're not applying it, then that just means that there's probably just not a strong enough reason why for it.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite posts that you put out maybe like a week ago or so when you said it's like the basics aren't lost on everybody. It's like, and we just did this in a group that I'm in, like there's 115,000 big box gyms in the US, and there's a 750,000 certified personal trainers. There's a lot of us out there throwing out a lot of information.
Yep.
Yet still 5% of people succeed long term in their health and fitness goals. So
Isn't
there
that
is
crazy? Isn't that just so fucking
it is, and
crazy?
it's something that, not as not as like a crusader or anything like that, but it's just something that I seriously ponder like every day of going in. It's like, why is such a, one out of 20 people are really going to succeed long term in this when everybody wants to feel better, everybody wants to be healthier, everybody wants to drop weight and feel confident in their body. Yet we're screwing up left and right of how we're going about it over and over. There's some sort of disconnect that's going on. That's why I love, talking with people like you, Aram, who have, been doing this for a while, have gone through, I'm sure, a bunch of failures to get to all the successes that you had and all the fuck ups and everything like that, to really deliver out like simple information and messaging. But it's just going back into the point of like asking questions with people, like just ask them about their lives. It's like, because we can go through all the macro, strategies as we can. I mean, like, get your protein and your carbohydrates and your fats and get those specifically down to a line. But if you want somebody to really adhere to it and work, like, one is you can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do. But second is you have to meet them where they're at and actually give them self-efficacy so they can feel confident in what they're doing. One of the guys I had on the podcast that I've referenced a bunch, Joel Cochran, who has a great business. And he says, he's like, all the coaches out here, we're trying to get people strong and get people losing weight. It's like the number one thing we have to do with people is show them self-confidence and like get them confident in themselves that they can actually believe that they're doing this and become autonomous in themselves. And I think if we're doing that as coaches, then I think we're serving a little higher purpose.
I think so. I mean, that's always my goal is autonomy. That's why I teach people how to program for themselves. I don't just give them, like, I give workouts too, but I spend a week, at least a week out of every month, doing a Zoom call where we do biomechanics and joint actions and understanding movement and muscle action so they can actually understand what they're doing at the gym and why.
Mhm.
Like, I have a woman who was sending me videos this morning and she works with a trainer, and she's during the middle of a set, she's asking her trainer, how many reps have I done? And the first piece of feedback I gave her from that video, I said, why the fuck are you asking your trainer how many reps you've done? Why are you not counting?
Mhm.
It's not her job to count your reps. It's her job to make sure that your form is decent, which it wasn't. So she's not doing her job and you're not doing your job. So what's the point of you going in and training her just so you can show up and have an appointment to adhere to? Just it's so people are just so misguided, and the responsibility falls back on the professional. It's our job to know better, and it's
Mhm.
our job to challenge these people. Like, I did that for years. I was a fucking rep accountant and a gym buddy for so long, and I never pushed people. I never educated people, and I just used it as an hour gab session for them, and they just went through the motions.
Mhm.
Now I'm like, if I see somebody in person, like there's one person I train now who it's more of a friend relationship and it's an accountability partner for him.
Sure.
But like, I'm still trying to educate him on biomechanics. I'm still in between rest times. I'm still talking to him about his nutrition. Like, I'm trying to make as big of an impact in his life as I can, because that's 60 minutes of time that I have with him. Why not use that as productively as possible? And I just think like a lot of people that hire help don't even understand why they're hiring help. They're like, well, I just hired a trainer. I said, cool, that's half the battle. What information are you going to extract from that individual?
Mhm.
Like, ask them fucking questions. Like, why am I doing an overhand grip lat pull down
Yeah.
when I see other people doing neutral grip lat pull downs? What's the difference?
Mhm.
Like, get curious about this stuff. And I think
Yes.
some people are just like, well, just tell me what to do, or I don't want to have to think about food. And it's just like this very aloof, hands-off approach. And then the coaches and trainers feed into it because they don't want to challenge their people, because it's easier just to give them something to follow versus educate them and then actually follow up and then see if they've learned anything.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I hammer people, man. Like, I'm like, if you don't fucking know the difference between overhand and neutral grip yet, like, we have a problem.
Yeah. No, and I love that. And I love the energy of the honesty that you bring out from it too. And I think a lot of coaches too, like there's this fear of like, oh, if somebody doesn't need me, then they're gonna leave. Like it's the scarcity mindset of it. And I've saw that a long time of, with people of as much as you're trying to help, you're like enabling people by doing the rep counting, by taking all this stuff, from them so they don't have to think about it. And maybe at the beginning session to get somebody going on that. Like,
Sure,
yeah, people
sure.
need to get started with stuff, but eventually, like, no, like people want to be self-sufficient and self-autonomous. Maybe they don't even realize that they can do that unless you get into it. But so Aram, dude, I seriously love talking to you. Like I really do love the honesty and the energy that you bring to the work that you do. And everything that you're putting out with the business. So, dude, I appreciate you talking to me today. This has been awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And I know it sounds like I'm a hard ass, but I'm really not. It's really
Mhm.
just more that I'm just very direct. And I
Love it.
don't have space in my life for sugarcoating and bullshit.
Mhm.
And I think it's just because I have a raspy, deep voice that I sound like an asshole. But if I've been able to retain 80, 40 plus year old menopausal women on my roster, I think I'm doing something right.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's well, we do. I think just in the business itself, in the industry, like we need more honesty with stuff, and not just honesty as a coach in personal development, but honesty with communication with people, because that's how you break through. As you said, like we grow through stress, and it's not just physical stress, or it's like sometimes it's conversation and it's conflict. Like that's when you grow. If you never have if you never have a conflict with your spouse, like I'm questioning your relationship a little bit there. But
Yep.
dude, if people want to follow you, people want to check out more of your work, what's the best place that they can go to?
I'm always on Instagram. I answer all my DMs. It's 4 weeks to the beach, the number 4, the number 2, 4 weeks to the beach. And then the conference that I host for coaches for personal and self-development is called the Real Coaches Summit. And the website for that is realcoachessummit2023.com. So if they have any, it's always going to be on my page and stuff on Instagram, but generally Instagram is the easiest place to find me and the most direct access to me.
Perfect. Brother, thank you so much. Listeners, go check the show notes, follow Aram. I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to the Strength Connection Mastery Seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait. Go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.